United news and transfer news as Manchester United make some exciting moves in the transfer market involving two very exciting Premier League strikers. We're talking CUNHA, Matata. No, we're not talking about Mateta. We're talking about CUNHA from Wolves, and we're also talking about Kudus from West Ham as well. I also got a little bit on Elise and a few other bits as well. Not hungover at all, Daniel. I've got a big football game today. There was no alcohol passing my lips last night. Maybe a little bit that later. But look, let's fly straight into it, because actually I do like the Sunday morning show, especially when the transfer window's open. You'll know from years of watching the United Stand in England, we get the Sunday papers and they're different outlets. They're literally just done on a Sunday. So the Sunday Mirror will have different journalists to the Mirror. We used to have the News of the World and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's a traditionalist Sunday morning papers review. And we're going to start off with this story about CUNHA, which I think is really interesting. I saw it last night and I was like, you know what? I genuinely would like Man United to sign this player. I think he's a really, I think he's a really interesting player for Manchester United to be linked to. And we do need a striker to come in and work as a alongside option to Rasmus. And I wouldn't be so disrespectful to say that they're going to replace Rasmus. And I wouldn't be so disrespectful to the player that comes in and says they're just going to be a bench option. What all good clubs need is competition. I mean, even at Man City, Erling Haaland will always play, but Alvarez is a very, very good signing. So, you know, they've got those two options. And I think that's something that Manchester United absolutely do need. The story goes, and it's from the Sunday Mirror, that Manchester United are very much interested in Wolves striker CUNHA, who is 25, Brazilian. I think he's 25, he might be 24 actually, but I've been very impressed with him. In the last season for Wolves, I've been really impressed with him. Technically, well, let's just talk about the possibility before we talk about the player, because actually the most important thing is, could it happen? Apparently, Manchester United are looking to double his £60,000 a week wage, which 120 grand a week for a striker isn't that bad. That's something that Wolves are going to struggle to do, which is therefore going to generate itchy feet from the player. He has got a contract till 2027, but Wolves are one of those clubs that, and a lot of people saying this morning, CUNHA is a good option and we need options and competition, like Ryan says. The interesting thing is he's got a contract till 2027, and I would value him at around £60 million. But I am managing the beta squad. Yes, Joshua, we'll talk about that later. But I think that a lot of this depends on Wolves' ability to generate funds themselves and how much money they might have for themselves on sorry, that my mic might be moving around a little bit. Wolves, we've been linked to their midfielder as well, Gomez, who I think is a very interesting option, and I wouldn't rule that out. But if Wolves want to make moves in the transfer market, and I'm sure Gary O'Neill does, then this is the sort of deal where they could say, well, there's £60 million for a player that actually is a good, valuable player for us. But does it move the needle for us next season when we could go and buy 2 or 3 players with that money? So the day in sport says, keep dreaming, CUNHA ain't leaving. I like that. Keep dreaming, CUNHA ain't leaving. Doesn't quite rhyme, but nearly did. But I think it's interesting that the fact that United are putting it out there that they'll double his wages, the fact that he would come to Manchester United and instantly be a very, very valuable player for us, and we'll talk about his technical ability in a minute. There's no doubting at Wolves he's had a good season. And for Wolves, it would be a loss. I think the ball is in Wolves' court. And CUNHA will go and say, look, I'm on £60,000 a week. I want a new contract. I want 80, 90 grand a week. And if Wolves aren't willing to negotiate, then you've got a player that might say, look, I'd be interested in moving. In which day, Wolves might then say, look, we could cash in here for a bit of money. It could be agent talks, as Alex. And I just want to say, there are the Goldbridge United Stand community 5 theories around every transfer we talk about, and we must always remember these 5 rules. Number 1, it could be true. Number 2, it could be Wolves looking to generate interest using Manchester United. Number 3, it could be the player looking for a new contract at Wolves. Number 4, it could be the player looking to leave Wolves and using Man United. Number 5, it could be total bollocks. So there's always different stories to this, and it's early days. But it caught my eye last night because technically I really like CUNHA. I wouldn't say I've watched Wolves loads of times, but when I have seen them play, what I like about him is, I think probably the thing that was standing out to me at the start of the season, and I don't know whether you would agree, is he a player that super chats just took my breath away. I will ignore it. That when I saw CUNHA at the start of the season, I thought he was a technical player that struggled with finishing. And in the second half of the season, he's actually improved that. I mean, I remember when they came to Old Trafford, opening game of the season, and I thought Wolves were brilliant. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So when I think about CUNHA, I think he's a. I nearly said he's a baller. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't know whether I'd go that far, but technically very, very good. If you remember, Moussa Dembele used to play for Spurs. He reminds me of him, even though he was a holding midfielder and CUNHA is an attacker. He's got that glide ability on the ball. When he gets the ball, he's very good at laying it off. He can dribble with it. He can pass and move. And I thought Moussa Dembele at Spurs for a season or two was absolutely brilliant. And CUNHA sort of reminds me of that as a striker. His ability to get hold of the ball and carry it is really, really interesting. And I think that he would bring a profile to Manchester United when it comes to the link-up play that's really, really important. And he's definitely improved on his striking as well. So look, as I said on Twitter last night, or X, I'd be very, very happy if CUNHA was a player coming to Manchester United. I really, really would. Let me know what you think in the comments. But yeah, I'd be very, very interested in bringing him into Manchester United. I suppose it's going to come down to price. And I suppose the interesting thing is as well, if the starting price is around £60 million, that's what Arsenal are going to pay for Sesko. So you either... My mic is not off. You either go for a player like that or you don't. And I think CUNHA at £60 million is probably the top end of what we want to be paying, really. So look, it's one to consider. It's a nice other option because we know we're going to bring a striker in, and being linked to Guirassy is a little bit unfortunate, really, because I don't really think he's the option. And then you've got the likes of Sesko, who look like they could be heading to Arsenal and would be expensive. So there's not actually that many players out there at the moment that are, jumping forward. And I think CUNHA would certainly be one of those. So look, keep an eye on it. Interesting. I certainly like the player. Whether Man United can do anything about it or not, we'll have to wait and see. Now, the second player we've been linked to, I think, is actually a mistake by Murta and Arnold, in the sense that Erik ten Hag will have put this name forward a long time ago. And we didn't do it. West Ham did the deal and Brighton tried to deal as well. So the Sunday Mirror are also mentioning CUNHA, who is obviously a forward that Man United could look at, but they're also mentioning Kudus of West Ham, formerly of Ajax. Now, this is a player that Erik ten Hag did mention last summer, but Man United, in their infinite wisdom, decided not to do anything about it because they felt that they were signing too many players from Ajax or with Eredivisie connections. So Man United didn't follow through on Kudus, and obviously West Ham and Brighton did. He chose West Ham, and he's had a very, very good season. Now, Man United have been linked to Kudus this morning by the Sunday Mirror. There's two things I would say about this. One, very, very good player. Two, never going to happen, because as David Ornstein reported, I think when he signed for West Ham, there is believed to be a release clause, but it doesn't kick in until 3 transfer windows have passed. Well, this will be the first transfer window because he signed last summer. January will be the third. Oh no, we've had the January transfer window this summer, next January. So his release clause doesn't start until a year's time. And is the Diamonde story true as well, says Merrick? Well, we'll look at that in a minute. It's on the list. But Kudus's release clause is rumoured to be around £85 million, and it doesn't actually kick in until next summer, because Liverpool have been looking at him as well. And look, Kudus is a good player. I think we would like him at Manchester United, but I think there's an option that's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot easier for Manchester United to go for. I also would say as well, we talk about how important it is that recruitment focuses in on mentality. Well done, Jadon Sancho, last night, by the way. Haven't seen the Sancho Player FC lot this morning. I think they were ready for the show, but they've decided to have a lie-in. Yeah, didn't have a great game last night, did he? Didn't have a great game. What a surprise. But no, look, I hope Sancho does well away from Manchester United. But anybody who thinks he's the answer to come back to United, he's not. He's not. But look, back on to Kudus. I think that when we're talking about mentality and we're talking about injury record, I think one thing that we also have to consider here is, and you look at the season that's just passed, do you want to buy players who are going to be playing in the Asia Cup or the AFCON in January? Because I think it was massively destabilising. Spurs, their season sort of fell apart in January because they lost a few players and they never recovered their momentum. Liverpool with Salah obviously got injured and that lost their momentum as well. So if you did buy a player like Kudus and he's off to play in the AFCON, however many years that happens, I think you've got to look at that, because Pep Guardiola doesn't have players who go to the AFCON or the Asia Cup. And I don't know whether that's by design or whether by luck. But I do think it's something that we need to consider. We're so far behind everybody else that I do think that we have to start looking at injury records, mentality, personal lives, what their behavior is like, and also, what their nationality is. And I know I don't want to be like, if there's a brilliant striker out there, let's go get. I mean, Garassi would be playing in the AFCON as well. I mean, he's a massive risk anyway, and he would be off to the AFCON. I just don't think we should be looking at those types of players when we want to try and catch up. We've got to look at every little. It's just what I'm trying to say is we've got to look at every. If you take enough shortcuts, and they're the right shortcuts, you'll win the race. And that is something where Man United can go, look, it's Kudus or it's Elise. Elise's half the price and he won't be playing in the AFCON. So, yeah. But then you've got to look at injury record as well. But Aaron says they're going to move the AFCON to June. Well, that would be a positive, I think, for club football. But I don't know whether they can do it in June, because I was told it was always about the heat. But we're not going to buy Kudus this summer. I think we will get linked to a lot of players this summer who will be exciting. I mean, I'm sure at some point we'll get linked to Harry Kane, who might want to, excuse me, Harry Kane might want to move back to the UK. But Man United won't have the funds to do that. So we will get some weird transfer stories. And I think that Kudus would be a player that certainly sort of fits that bill. And Dirk says, I'd go for Elise anyway, because we need creativity. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be wrong on this, but my feeling with what's his name? Kudus, is that he has been quite creative for West Ham. I mean, I know Liverpool are very much looking at him. So, maybe that's an option. Let me just read this story I don't know where this story's come from. It's not one that's massively jumped out at me, but Manchester United are considering a move for Ousmane Diomande, with Sporting prepared to compromise on their asking price in order to attract summer bids. Liverpool and Newcastle have also been hot on the heels of the 20-year-old defender, but their interest is understood to have cooled in recent weeks. United met with Diamande's representative earlier this season, and communication has continued since Sir Jim Ratcliffe arrived at Old Trafford. Sporting need to raise cash through player sales, but manager Ruben Amorim is desperate to keep hold of their star striker, Victor Gyökeres, which leaves the club other valuable assets on the chopping block. Sporting are expected to cash in on Diomande or Iheanacho. Diamande's contract includes a £68 million release clause, but the club have received minimal interest at that price. Sporting have now set the price at around £50 million, although it was understood they could seriously consider offers of around £35 million. So, look, that's coming out from, I'm just trying to see where that's coming from, because it's not one that I sort of saw massively yesterday, but I did note it down for this morning. Trying to see what the source of it is. I mean, it's in the Express for a start, but again, I think he's another player, isn't he, that Ivory Coast, if my memory serves me right, yeah, centre-back, right-footed. Let me have a look if he has actually played for the Ivory Coast. I think he has. Yeah, he's played 5 times for Ivory Coast, so it would be 20 years of age. Yeah, I mean, look, it's the more G-Man says Diamonde looks a good player, 20 years of age, right-footed, doing very well at Sporting Lisbon. I mean, look, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. It's not a player that I've heard Man United are scouting with any great hunger. But there's another centre-back at Sporting Lisbon that was sort of the hot thing maybe 6 to 12 months ago, and that is Nacho. And it's gone very, very quiet on him. And it's like the centre-back at Benfica as well. Is it Silva? Like, it's gone very, very quiet on him. I mean, look, the centre-back market is so good, and you wouldn't struggle to come up with between 5 and 10 really interesting centre-back options for Manchester United this summer, would you? I mean, we all know the obvious ones like Branthwaite and Todibo. Scalvini's been mentioned. Guehi's been mentioned. Obviously, Chalobah's been mentioned now. You've got Diamonde there. The Tapsoba's been mentioned. There's so many centre-backs that have been mentioned around Manchester United. And I think that there's not a shortage. In fact, there's so many. But Rio says, if we fumble Todibo, I'll be disappointed. That's still the one I want. I don't know which one you would go for. Bremer as well, says Ryan. There are so many centre-backs. And I think that's part of the reason for me why Tosin going to Chelsea just didn't bother me. I mean, it would have been an interesting deal for the club to do, because financially it would have freed up, money for them. But I'm not really bothered about that. I'm not the person who's let Old Trafford rust. I'm not the person who took dividends out of the football club. I don't really care, about Man United saving money when we've been put into debt by irresponsible owners. So Tosin coming in on a free. Why should we do this too much as football fans? We get like, well, Tosin's a really good deal because he's a free deal and that gives us money elsewhere. But actually, do you want Tosin over Todibo, Scalvini, Guehi, Branthwaite, Diamonde, Tapsoba? No, I don't. I actually want some of those better options because they're better options. So I'm not really bothered that we didn't get Tosin. But we can't be blind to the fact that there is a lot of really good, interesting centre-back options out there, and there's no excuse not to bring two in other than bad scouting or low transfer funds. We really struggled last season, didn't we, with the likes of Martinez and Maguire and Varane and Lindelof and Johnny Evans and even Kambwala getting injured. There is no excuse. It's not like Man United could start next season and go, oh, we didn't realise we had a centre-back problem. I mean, it's the biggest headline on the front page. You've got a centre-back problem. Everybody knows Man United have got a centre-back problem. So you either do something about it or you leave it. And I think that we should be in a position where we buy two centre-backs. Any real interest in Lenny Yoro? I mean, this story is complete bollocks. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you very much, Sif. Absolute nonsense story about Yoro. I said this on Friday. I don't really know where it was coming from. I mean, look, we can all dream that Ineos are going to drop these mic drops of signings. Like, we got excited because we took Barada from Man City and then we can't get Ashworth from Newcastle and we don't know what we're doing with the manager and we've not bought anybody and we've not sold everybody. So all these Ineos can make dreams happen statements that we thought when we got Barada actually haven't followed through. They got Barada out of Man City in January and they've done nothing exciting since. So I think that I'll read the super chats in a minute. Thank you. I'll decide when we do those. So look, if Man United went and signed Lenny Yoro, I would go, bloody hell, Ineos mean business, because I know Liverpool and Real Madrid want him. But we're not getting Lenny Yoro because he was at the Champions League game last night watching Real Madrid, and Real Madrid really want him. And I don't care how good Ineos are, they won't be able to beat Real Madrid to a player like that. So yeah, we've got to be wary of time wasting, and I think Lenny Yoro was a time wasting story on Friday. John says, do we find it concerning that De Zerbi hasn't announced his new club and we haven't made a decision on Ten Hag yet? I think it's odd. Well, I think, John, we're into I don't know what we call this week. We need a name for this week. Deal week. I don't know whether there's going to be a deal. Well, I suppose it is deal week, isn't it? We're going to talk about Elise in a moment, but we're going to find out about Erik Ten Hag in the next 48 hours, I think. Spinios, says Red. That's the first time I've heard that. That's quite funny. Spinios. Decision week, yes. Deal week, whatever you want to call it. Judgment day. Yeah, I think there's so many things you can call it, but I'd be absolutely stunned if we're here at the end of the week going, we still don't know what's happening with our manager. I think it's coming out in... I wouldn't be surprised if it came out early tomorrow morning. I don't have that information, but I think that how it comes out will be very interesting. I mean, look, if they sack him, then it will instantly... I mean, can you imagine the fan base if we sack him? Can you imagine the media if we sack him? The media will try and spin it as a really exciting positive, as will Ineos. The fan base, I think, some people will be excited, the minority, and the majority will just be like, what the fuck's going on at this football club? So I think it's... I think we're in for a very interesting 48 hours. I would like just to get clarity that Ten Hag's here next season so we can start moving forward on transfers, to be honest with you. Can give Dad Jamie a shout out for being sound geezer, says Frill. Shout out, Dad, sound geezer. Get Lewandowski ASAP from Barca to mentor Rasmus, says Stephen. I think he's past it, mate. Daily Hibbert says, morning, Mark. Is it possible for Sir Jim to inject his own cash for transfers? No, not really. If Qatar had bought Manchester United, they could have built the best stadium in the world with their own money. They could have built the best training facility in the world with their own money. But because of financial fair play, you can't just chuck £1 billion and say spend that. Because if you could, Newcastle would. Newcastle are the richest club in the world, but they can't get the money into the club because let's imagine Newcastle's revenue is £300 million a year. You can't just give them £1 billion to spend because they'll get hit with FSP saying, but you only make £300 million a year. And last year you spent £250 million on transfers and wages. So actually you can only spend 50 million. So you can't just inject money in for transfers. What you need to do is clear out shit and increase revenue. And the only way we're going to do that is in the long term. But there are some short things that you can do. Chelsea did do it. Chelsea sort of did it on amortization contracts, 10-year contracts, spreading it out over a long period of time. Man City did it before FFP had teeth, and now they're reaping the benefits of it. So it can be done, but it's hard to do now. Hi, Mark. Which hotel is this? Looks grand, says Rub. I can't give you that detail because I'm not the only one staying at this hotel. And do we find it concerning about De Zerbi, you said, John? I'm trying to think. Well, yes and no. What jobs are available for De Zerbi to take? I don't know what jobs are available in football at the moment. AC Milan, Napoli have given the job to Conte. What jobs are available in Italy? Is Juventus still available? Barcelona is gone. Hansi Flick. Liverpool's gone. Chelsea's gone. Brighton's available, but that was his job. Trying to think. Bayern Munich's gone. I mean, look, you don't have to. Motta's gone to Juventus, apparently. You don't have to take a job now. Apparently, the Milan job might be available. No big job is available, says Jaden. But you don't have to take a job straight away. You don't have to take a job straight away. People will get sacked very, very quickly. And sometimes you're better off wait until November because there will be a job that comes up. There'll be a big club where it goes wrong. Could be Chelsea, could be Man United, could be Juventus. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think. I mean, De Zerbi to Man United just doesn't fit anyway. I mean, for me, there isn't anybody that fits Man United, but De Zerbi doesn't fit Man United. I mean, his second half to the season for Brighton was shit, and he's a very, very stubborn individual who, you know, enjoys good football over winning and trophies. He said some really weird stuff, and I just don't think he would be instantly likable to this Man United fan base, really. Nemo says, Mr. Jimmy has really overshadowed the excitement of Ten Hag winning the FA Cup. Thank you very much for your super chat, mate. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in. Make sure you smash a like on the video. Just on Elise as well, there is a little bit about him. I think Kudus is pie in the sky talk, but I think around Elise, he is not playing in the Euros. He is a player that is certainly somebody that Manchester United could be are looking at, as are Chelsea. Still very, 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 very much wants to join Manchester United. And I think the realistic thing here is that we do look at how quickly we want to get that deal done and whether we want that deal to be done, because I've always had the indication that he wants to join Manchester United. He wants to join this journey. He's certainly one of the form right wingers in the Premier League this season around creativity and goals as well. So I think that when you consider that we are heading into, well, we are in June now, he's not going to be part of the Euros. There was an interesting comment last night about whether we'll just wait to do deals until sort of January time. Sorry, July the 1st, because that's when the season opens. But I think that there has to be some development around Manchester United in the next few days, because we've got so much to do. And we can't just sit there watching the Euros going, oh, we'll have a go in January and July. But I also think it's very interesting as well to just touch on the fact that, yeah, we want to get the manager situation resolved. Yes, we want to bring players in as well. But Mason Greenwood, Jadon Sancho, Christian Eriksen, Donny van der Beek, Brandon Williams. There is so many players out there that we don't want to, I know it sounds harsh, but we don't want to see on July the 1st, them walking into Carrington with a boot bag. It's symbolic of a failure of an ownership to do that. And we need to be sending a stronger message out that we mean business. And when you get the Deadwood rolling into Carrington early because they weren't part of the Euros, so they're not that good, and they're there training with Ten Hag or whoever the manager is and the kids, and they're going on tour, I mean, I don't want to see Jadon Sancho or Donny van der Beek or Brandon Williams on tour taking up game time where you could be playing Lacey or Amas or Collier. Like that, if you're somebody that's going to be on the tour or watching the tour games, you learn nothing from watching Jadon Sancho or Donny van der Beek or Brandon Williams. Whereas if you see 2 or 3 youngsters or a new signing playing, you learn everything. And Tina G says, poor Donny. Well, yeah, I agree. It's not personal, but these players have had their chances, and Manchester United do need to move quicker. Rory C says, who are the 2 players? It's actually in the title, Rory, CUNHA and Kudus, who we've spoken about. So yeah, I think we need to we do need to start looking about outgoings, and there is this concerning July the 1st sort of deadline for Manchester United and a lot of clubs, because that's when the football financial year ends. But that doesn't mean you don't need to wait for that. Like, you can announce that, here we go, Elise's joining Man United, but he doesn't officially hold the shirt up until July the 1st. You can announce, here we go, Jadon Sancho's staying at Dortmund for another year on loan. You can announce Mason Greenwood, here we go, he's signing for Atletico Madrid, but he holds up the shirt on July the 1st. Like, you can't just wait till July the 1st to start doing deals, is my point. And I don't think United should be doing that. But as we know, everything at the moment seems to be handbrake because of what's going on around the manager. There will never be a perfect manager available, but sometimes when you're convinced what's on offer is better than what you have, you've got to go for it, says Sanil. Well, if they're convinced there's a better manager than Erik Ten Hag out there, I'd love to know who's making that decision and why, because I just can't see it, Sanil. I can't. Thomas Tuchel just makes me want to cry. He's so miserable and selfish. De Zerbi is an absolute risk, and Pochettino, for every reason we didn't want him 2 years ago, I don't think anything has changed there. The only thing that you learn from Rashford is laziness and mentality. I mean, look, we haven't mentioned Marcus Rashford for a few shows now. I hope we don't mention Marcus Rashford most of June. I mean, that's a player that you do want to see back at Carrington on July the 1st, looking refreshed mentally and physically, ready to hit the new season. That's what you want to see. What we'll probably see over June is him running up hills in America and, with his top off and showing that physique that he did 2 years ago. Remember 2 years ago when it was all about his physique and fitness, or maybe it was a year ago or not. So I think that's what he needs to go on for, unless we're going to sell him, which we're clearly not. So it's Operation Redemption for Rashford, isn't it? Because I can't see Man United selling him. So for me, Rashford's a player we don't even really need to talk about until he's back in pre-season for Man United. We've got a hell of a lot of things that we need to be working on before that. There was something I was going to say as well. I have no faith in Ineos, says Tina G. We don't want to see Rashford next season. He's had plenty of chances, says Ems. Thoughts on Hermosa as an option, left-footed centre back on a free. There's a couple of good free transfers that we could make, says Ben. Well, there's also Rabiot as well, which is one I would keep an eye on. Ineos are waiting a week to announce Erik ten Hag is staying because they don't want to be seen changing their minds, it says F. And I think we paid Brighton for De Zerbi, but now they see how much fans want Ten Hag and now might want him to leave, says Barry. Barry, I might be completely wrong on this, but listen to what you're saying. We're sacking Erik ten Hag for De Zerbi. De Zerbi has had a shit season at Brighton, and so has Ten Hag, for the same reasons. And yet we're in Europe and we've won a trophy. And Brighton were in the bottom half of the table. Brighton have gone backwards under De Zerbi. Ten Hag and Man United have actually done something. So you're telling me that Man United have decided to pay Ten Hag 10 million to sack him, and we're going to pay Brighton 5 million for De Zerbi. 15 million to go from De Zerbi, from Ten Hag to De Zerbi. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. That to me would be terrifying, and I would really question who's behind it, because Ashworth wasn't at Brighton with De Zerbi either, so I don't know what that would be all about. Maya says Brighton had a lot of injuries. Yeah, mate, I literally just said we both had the same problems, and we did better. So someone paid his clause, says Rory. According to who? DiMarzio. Someone paid his clause. And also, I think there's an interesting thing here. Somebody paid his clause, half his clause, 50% of his clause. Do you think Brighton, who took Chelsea for £100 million for Casido, would say, yeah, we don't mind you going to Manchester United for half your release clause? Absolutely fine, Robert. Off you go, Roberto. To me, that clause thing doesn't even make sense. I can't imagine what club it would be, but maybe they decided they wanted someone else. Maybe a club that's already got a different manager just said, no, we're not going to pay it. You're not contractually obliged to do it, are you? So I don't see it being Man United for De Zerbi. I really don't. Mark, do you think the first few games next season will be huge for Ten Hag, says Kyle? I think it will be fine. I think we'll be a better team next season. I think that we already know that the fans are behind the team and the manager. And I think the media haven't been behind Ten Hag for a very long time. And I don't think that's going to change. So I'm not really bothered. I'd look forward to next season, really, if I'm being honest. We have way better players and we finished 8th, says Mayor. Do we have, I mean, Mayor, I don't want to waste time on you because obviously you live up De Zerbi's arse, but Brighton had a lot of injuries. Man United had a lot of injuries. We're arguing who had the most injuries. The bottom line is Brighton were shite. We were shite, but we still finished higher than Brighton and we won a trophy and we beat Man City in that trophy. This myth that Brighton are somehow crap compared to Man United. Have you watched the Premier League for the last 4 or 5 years? I'd actually argue that over the last 4 or 5 years, Brighton are probably better than Man United. They're a selling club, they're a smaller club, but over the last 4 or 5 years, they're probably as good, if not better. And also, I don't know the Brighton situation, but we've not had any centre backs either. Look, the point is, Mia, if you want De Zerbi as your coach, absolutely fine. I think he's shit. I don't think he's good enough to be a Man United manager, and I think he's proved that over the last few months. You might get what you want. We're comparing ourselves to Brighton, says Tiago. Mark, how many frees would you make this season? I think there's 2 or 3 quite interesting ones, says Ben. I mean, I'm not interested in free transfers, mate. If we buy people on free transfers like we did with Ericsson, you could say it's a good bit of business, but we're only looking at free transfers because we're in debt because of the Glazers. So I don't necessarily get excited about free transfers unless it's like a a quirk of a contract where somebody's run their contract down and they're absolutely amazing. Yeah, I don't get excited about free transfers, because the only reason we're going for free transfers is because we haven't got any bloody money. Brighton have a much weaker. Okay, we're not talking about Brighton anymore. Mark, Eric Ten Hag has been available along with Tuchel, De Zerbi. I say Ten Hag would be a good option, says Mov. Okay. Brighton got rid of De Zerbi because he is trouble, says Neil. Well, I don't want to talk about Brighton anymore. But what you do need to understand is that Brighton were quite willing to get rid of him. So it wasn't just one-way traffic. You know what I mean? Barry says, I think it's really disrespectful to fans making us wait around for a decision on a manager not being able to enjoy an FA Cup win. You could argue that's a fair point. Hi, says Jarek. I'm starting to lose my voice a bit here, which is not great when I've got to manage later. Don't forget to watch it on YouTube later on, 4 o'clock on the Beta Squad YouTube channel. We're live, Goldbridge managing. Can't wait for that. Somebody said okay, Depay is a free agent now. Can't go back there, surely. You can't go back. Be crazy. Anamika, I've seen you. You've done it twice. It's a good buy from you. Idiot. It'll be a close game later on. Beta Squad are better than AMP at football, but the draft hasn't been kind. So, yeah, I'm hoping to get my boots on playing a little bit as well, but we'll see. Right, I better go and rest this voice up a little bit. I'm starting to lose it a little bit. Thanks, everyone, for watching this morning. Make sure you smash a like on the video. We're nearly 1,000 likes, and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are on CUNHA. Let me know what your thoughts are on the centre-back situation, especially being linked to another centre-back from Sporting Lisbon, Diamonde. There's so many good centre-back options out there. What two would you go for? For me, it's still Todibo and Branthwaite. They're the two that stand out, but whether we'll get those two, I don't know, really. And also, we're on the cusp of big week. I just can't see us this time tomorrow not being in a position where we know what's going on with the manager. So, yeah, let's wait and see what happens with that. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great day. Don't forget to watch the Beta Squad YouTube channel at 4 o'clock for a bit of Goldbridge ball. It's going to be exciting. The sun is shining. Check out my Instagram this morning, by the way. London was dead at 8:30 this morning. It was a fantastic walk around Blackfriars Bridge. I'll speak to you in a bit.